Akzo Nobel. We've got Rajiv Rajgopal, the managing director, now joining us on the show. Thanks so much for taking time out. We were just interacting with the management of Berger Paints, talking about which of their segments it is that we are seeing growth from. What is it when it comes to Akzo Nobel as well in terms of your volume-led growth in the quarter gone by?
Good morning, Avney. Look, as far as Akzo Nobel India is concerned, you've seen the numbers. I think we've had a pretty differentiated sort of growth versus the industry, while the aggregate numbers may seem very different. Two reasons. We've also seen a very strong rebound on volume. First and foremost, volume is now going to drive the growth for the next year or so, because I think the overdue on pricing because of the RMC inflation is obviously now going through a reverse effect. You're seeing a deflationary RMC, which is the reason why you're seeing profitability. Coming to our performance per se, volume did drive it, both in the paints and coatings business. For us, our luxury super premium category really delivered well, which is why we have one of the strongest contribution margins in the industry. And I think where we had a bit of a challenge compared to the rest of the industry was a little bit in the economy and the mass because of a base effect of last year, and we are putting some actions in place to do it. In our coatings business, we've had some very strong rebounds in our industrial coatings business. We've also seen some strong growths in our automotive and vehicle refinish business, and also seen good, strong double-digit growths in our powder business. We had a bit of a challenge on a marine protective, primarily because of an order which has got postponed to the current quarter. But all in all, I would say it was a far more well-rounded. We saw growths coming from the smaller towns, largely led by distribution expansion. Our challenges happened in a couple of states, where we had a bit of a challenge on growth, where we believe the industry also has not really grown. All in all, if I were to look at 9 months, and that's the way we look at it, we look at it a little bit of a longer time horizon, not just a quarter. We still believe that we are in the top 2 in terms of growth in the industry. We've just had our brand scores come in, a couple of days ago. We've had the highest brand scores that we've seen in almost a decade, and led by some of the advertising initiatives. We are glad that the investment that we paid put during the World Cup, we advertised right through to the semi-finals because the final rates were humongous, right? So that seemed to have worked well because we've got a very high score. Our intent to buy, being a preferred brand, because of the fact that we are international best-in-class quality, continues to ring well from a paints perspective. So all in all, I think our growths are pretty strong. I think the team is really poised. We do intend to now start taking market share. We've gained market share, as has been reported by various analysts, not just our own internal studies over the last couple of years. And we intend to continue that run as we move forward, both in our coatings and paints business.
Rajiv, clearly, I was looking at how you have expanded your margins to almost 16%. Some of your competitors are wanting to go in that 16-17% range. So what led to the margin expansion? What are those levers? And are you okay with 16% plus kind of margins sustaining here, or do you aspire to even higher levels from here on?
So I think the right way to look at it is, where are you positioned in the industry? So we are a number 4 player. We have got an aggregate market share of paints and coatings closer to about 8 to 9%, right? As in Akzo Nobel India. I think what we really want to do is to really start focusing on growth, and using operating leverage to drive the profitability part. I'm pretty happy in terms of the margin, and I've always said, look, a band between 13 to 15 is strong enough for a player, as long as you're building a sustained top line growth, which adds back into the bottom line. Yeah, so that's where we are. What led to it? I think one thing which was common was obviously the deflationary raw material prices, which is across the industry. But we've also put some very strong initiatives like war on waste. We are doing a lot of programs in terms of harmonization of blends at our factories. I think all our factories, and I must compliment our teams, are really looking at in terms of how digitization can help, how automation can drive it, not just on the front end, but also on the back end. So there are various initiatives that we are putting in for, and I'm glad that some of them are slowly coming into play.
Mm-hmm. The other thing I wanted to ask you is, out of your own product lineup, some of your competitors were telling us that it's the value zone which is actually doing very well. Luxury is still yet to pick up. Whereas in many categories, it's the luxury side which is doing phenomenally well. The value zone is, weak. which end of your segments are doing better?
So for us, luxury did well. Okay. And I think this is a slight difference versus the industry. Well, I must say that if you look at the growth, about 70% of the growth has really come from the mass economy, the value, what we call the mass and economy, which is the value segment. Right. For us, in luxury, which is what we call the super premium internally, has done exceptionally well. It's because of two things. One, we've got a very strong brands. These are iconic brands, whether it's Dulux Velvet Touch, Dulux Weather Shield, Powerflex, and the whole range there, right? I think these are iconic brands. These are, Velvet Touch is India's favorite interior brand. It may not reflect necessarily a number of consumers, but in terms of sheer quality, people who've used it, we've got, in what marketing terminology we say Solus, which is 100% usage, non-core, which is, less than 50 to 100, and absolutely core and non-core, right? So if you look at Dulux has Velvet Touch has the highest amount of Solus usage in the industry. And this is something that we very carefully watch when every market research comes. Yeah. It had a huge attrition about a decade ago, but I think over the last many years, I think I would say about a 10, 12-year period, we've started pulling it back, and more sharply in the last couple of years. So we are seeing some consumers who've done it because it's the best in class quality. And once we launched Dulux Assurance, which gave the customers a confidence that we are willing to give a money back guarantee in case you have a problem with your stated coverage, color, consistency, we started seeing a faster ramp up, and consumers at that end really don't look at pricing per se. So we've not had an issue there. We've had definitely a challenge in the economy because the larger players have had a fairly entrenched market share and positions. We've worked on our distribution 2.0, and the teams have done a remarkable job in setting up micro distributors across the length and breadth of the country. Today, we are almost in 5,700 towns. We are getting to 5,500 to 5,700 towns, in a few months from now. And hence, my view is, look, I think we remain optimistic. We believe that, look, we should be able to drive the top end as we continue to grow the economy and the mass going forward.
All right, thank you for joining in and sharing with us those metrics. Volume will be driving growth in the next few quarters, and they are looking at the luxury segment as well that has outperformed the mass segment.